Welcome to Between State Lines.
Yeah, it's already at 99%, 87. I don't know. I can't make up its mind, but it's fine.
So, welcome back to Between State Lines, episode 21. And this week was pretty exciting. Steph, you start a new job. How's that going?
Yeah, so far so good. Yeah, it's an adventure. They don't know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Trying to figure out insurance stuff, and it is really weird working for tribal government, but cool. It's really cool. The strangest thing happened to me is that I was on my way to the bathroom and somebody else was coming out. And she was like, "What's your last name?" And I told her, and she was like, "My mom is your grandma's oldest sister." And I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "So you're my dad's cousin?" And she's like, "Yeah. And I used to hang out with your dad, but I'm too old to hang out at bars." And I was like, "That stacks."
Wow. What are the odds? Holy
Well,
moly.
I have two cousins that work for tribal government, and I haven't ran into them yet. But I told my boss who one of them was, and she's like, "Oh yeah, he's just over here in this building, like, or it's in the same building but somewhere else." And then the other one, he's listed on the directory as working in the same building as me, but I haven't seen him yet. And like, he was my favorite cousin growing up, so I'm like really excited for that. Actually, both of them were. The other one lived with us when I was like 4 or 5, and I was obsessed with him because he's like the first cousin that I ever knew that I had. And he was like late teens at the time, so I don't know. I just thought he was the coolest person ever. I'm pretty excited to run into some family. But yeah, that lady came back and was like, "Your grandma's birthday was on Monday. You should go visit her." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I'm not super close with her, but that's probably a good idea. An adventure being in native land.
I am curious. I'm curious how the tribal council meetings work. Like, I've always wanted to see how those is it like a regular council, or is there anything special to it, or is it just
I have a lot of fun listening in on it. So the next time one happens, I'll send an invite to you and you can participate if you want to. Sometimes they're like an hour long. Sometimes it's like, surprise, this is actually 3 hours long. And I normally listen to it the whole way through. Like, even when they break and go have lunch, like, I'll still be on like the Zoom just having it in the background because they have a raffle at the end, and like, I have to be a part of all the raffles.
are you like, is your name in the hat, or is it like, yeah, wow.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like just tribal members or not. It feels like it must be. Just because they've never asked for any info and they just normally send me the check when I win. Um, yeah, because it's happened twice. Like, I think one time I won $100, and then one time I won like $50, and that was pretty sick. Like, and then sometimes they give away, like, somebody will make like a necklace or something, and they'll give that away. But I don't want any of that cool stuff yet. My sister, because like the restoration is coming up, and my sister, she won beads for restoration. So like, me and her took like a Native American leadership thing, that so that we could graduate with like an extra stole. um and we learned how to make like the seed beads, bracelets and rings and stuff, so that was pretty cool. So she won some, like, a gift card for like a bunch of seed beads so she can make her own stuff.
What is restoration for those of us who are not in the tribal community?
So the tribe, I took a Native American flute class when I was in college, from a really famous Native American flutist, and he's actually part of the tribe. And I saw an email from him this last week, and I was like, that was my teacher in college. But so what he taught us was that, like, back in like the 50s, I want to say, they actually brought tribal land down to 2 acres. So everybody who's tribal had to live within like this 2 acre parcel, or if they worked outside of it, they made half wages. And so like a lot of people said they weren't tribal because if they were kind of like stuck in this like a little imprisonment, and like everything with the Trail of Tears, and like one of the big ways of sustenance was like buffalo, and they took away being able to hunt for buffalo because they really liked like the hides. And so one of the songs that we learned was the rabbit song, because that was like a way for natives to like sustain themselves. Um and that was like their tribute to the rabbit. But anyway, so with at that time, a lot of tribes had their like being recognized as a tribe taken away from them. And so with restoration, it was the government actually acknowledging you as a tribe again. And so since then, like we've had our tribal government, we've had all these different rules. Like one of the ones that's happening right now is like a change in lineal descent, where you have to, if you want to be a part of the tribe, you have to have like a certain blood quantum, you have to have a parent on the roll, and you have to be able to like go back to how you're tied in with the tribe. It's a huge thing, because having my kids on the tribe like roster was, I had to actually take a maternity test to show that my children came from me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, me and my daughter, our day of our like test, it was like the cutest photo of me and her in a little car seat. She's like, it's so adorable. But yeah, like it's the only time I've been in the building that I work in now was when I was setting up my son being a tribal member. So it was like right after he was born. And then my daughter is down in Arizona. So we had to do it all from like a distance and like go to like an outside lab to show that she's actually my child. But yeah, there's a lot of I like native politics. It's very interesting. And then being even like on their Facebook page where everybody argues about all of it is super interesting too. I don't think I could ever do tribal council, is what I'm saying.
I see, whenever I think of council meetings, I think of, like, Parks and Rec, where all the community people are just complete morons and saying the stupidest shit.
That is exactly how it is too. There are so many people that are like, if you add people to the roster, then are you adding newborns? Are you adding people who have been waiting? Because there was like a time that they, um, I don't think it was a ton of people, but some people did get disenrolled. And so that's like it's a hot topic, because they're like, okay, so are you gonna re-enroll the people that were disenrolled because of like these certain rules that came out like early 2000s? And I'm probably not even conveying it in the right way because it hasn't really affected me, but I try to learn as much as I can. I didn't grow up learning any of this. Like my dad taught us like you're part of 5 tribes. You're Umpqua, Banton, Rogue River, Shoshone, and Ute, which is part of this greater tribe. And then we could switch to like a different casino if we wanted to, but if we did, we'd never be able to come back to the one that like our family's in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like good thing that's not been a decision, because now like my whole family works there is what it feels like. But apparently, and just between you, me, and any listeners out there, my dad tried to disenroll us. My aunt told me, and I like went to my mom and I was like, did dad try to like make it so that we weren't on the roster for like being native? And she's like, oh yeah, you don't remember that? You were probably like in high school. It's like, no, I don't remember. And she's like, yeah, you're probably like 14, 15. And yeah, he tried to take you guys, or she's like, I don't know if he actually did anything, but he talked about it. Like, you guys weren't native enough. And so he wanted to like take you off the roster. And now me and my littlest sister work there, and I'm trying to get my other sister a job.
Oh my god, I can't disenrolled, man.
I know. It's not wild. Like, family drama.
Speaking of family drama, so I told you, but my daughter was sent home yesterday from daycare because she was hugging aggressively, and the way they worded it was that she was pulling kids down, tackling them, and spitting on them. And so my brain, I'm like, okay, this sounds like a fight club. Like she's like pile driving them like John Cena. And no, it's just she's like running full speed into her friends for a hug and knocking them over and like blowing raspberries. I'm like, okay, like I get it, but like what? You mean it sounds so dramatic and so awful?
That is hilarious. My niece, my sister's constantly talking about, she goes to daycare with like one other child, and she will straight up like grab the kid's hood and pull her down. And I'm just so proud of her. I'm like, she probably deserved it. What did that kid do? I'm like, I understand as your child, like you're worried about it, but like she's gonna need that.
Gonna need that defense mechanism, like you know.
I know, but your daughter's just being sweet. She just loves them too much. Like, is that what?
I
You're
just like
calling that
pictured
bullying?
I just like pictured them her like pinning a kid down and like holding her mouth up and being like, "All right, here it comes." I'm like, this is
Like
not what
Big
she
Daddy,
is.
just like the drool spit. Man,
Oh my god. Yeah,
that's
it was. Yeah, I was like, "What?" And of course, like I go to pick her up and she's like just running around the classroom like a crazy toddler. I'm like, "Okay, guys, we got to figure out a solution to this because she's being." They're like, "Oh, we called in this expert from the state to like tell us how to like handle this." And I'm like, this is not a complicated issue. Like we can redirect, we can like teach her not to spit on her friends, but like you have other kids who do this kind of stuff. I know you do. Like it's not unusual.
you called an expert from the state. What did they say?
They're
And
coming
did
in
they?
on I think
Oh, they're coming still. Did they
yeah.
actually word it the same way that they told you the situation is, or?
Like, look, we have John Cena in our daycare.
Because my
How
kids went to Baby Fight Club. Like when we lived in Arizona, there was one of our daycares was an at-home daycare, and it was mostly boys. And like it was like Baby Fight Club, and honestly, they had a great time, and the price was right, and they were safe and cared for. Like it was great. Um, I mean, yeah, I no arguments. Baby Fight Club. We just didn't talk about it, because it's Fight Club.
well, your kids are also COVID kids, so they're feral already.
It's true. My daughter's been hanging out at my friend's house, and they were like, she was a really good kid all day, and then the boys came home, and it was you. Like all I can picture is like the. Have you seen How I Met Your Mother?
Mhm.
When they do the flashbacks, and it's like
Oh.
murder. That's what I picture. It's diabolical.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's wild. Oh, so I added a festive decoration to our spooky painting. A little Santa that climbs up the ladder. So the
Oh,
painting is now it's got a friend. It's festive. Which also so this clock right here is from my wife's family, and my family has an identical clock on the East Coast. Identical to this.
that is wild. That is wild. Yeah, I want to see an up close photo. How crazy it'd be. It's like, wait, I had a clock like that too.
Um, so the other day I was last week we mentioned ghost babies and ghost babies fighting off zombies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I brought this topic up in a TikTok live on like Sunday, and somebody postulated that we could use these ghost babies as world peace soldiers. So go into places like, where there's war and kind of keep the peace. So we have to figure out how to cultivate, communicate with ghosts in the afterlife, make them have babies, or convince them to, and those babies can go can go fight.
How do you make a ghost baby listen? I can't make regular children listen, so maybe that's my first problem. Um, Also, it feels like it takes a lot of energy for them to be around. So if that's the truth, um, don't it feels like maybe the negative, the anger energy is it brings a lot of it out. Maybe love does. I don't know. I don't know if it'd be enough to keep the peace, you know? I don't know. I want to. I need to. I need to hear more from these people because sometimes I'm like, are you a real person in these lives, or who's come up with
My
these?
li my lives have gone from, just a wide spectrum of conversation, like ghosts to, like, Donald Trump to, me being sexually harassed to, like, anything and everything. And the other topic we had that someone brought up was, like, a bracket of ghosts fighting each other. So, like, famous ghosts, like Betty White, for example, fighting, like, I don't know, Michael Jackson in the afterlife. Like, who would win that fight? And I said,
Okay.
"Well, I think Betty White would be, like, a tricky, dirty fighter, like, she'd, like, pick dirt up and, like, throw it in your face because you wouldn't expect it, and then she'd, like,
Well,
pile drive you."
isn't isn't it in Community that Betty White is like that?
I've only seen that few I haven't seen Community in a while, so that could definitely be the case.
Okay. I'm pretty positive that she's an instructor in Community, and she's like, okay, so what do you do to create, like, how do you create a weapon out of these materials? And they come up with some, like, we work together to bring peace or something like that. And she's like, no, actually, if you put them all together, you make like a slingshot, and, or like some sort of like it shoots arrows. And she's just like, this is how you actually do it. And so yeah, I agree. Betty White would, I like, hands down. I don't even think it'd be that sneaky. Like, she's got some creative energy there. But also, I see the spirit of Betty White being like, fuck all of you guys. Excuse my language. Um, I am living my best afterlife. I'm not fighting anything. And probably sipping on some vodka, martinis, and chilling.
That is fair. That is fair. Speaking of the afterlife, I finished watching, The Good Place, and I know you don't care about spoilers. I think you said that you don't care, right?
I
Okay.
don't. It makes me want to watch it more. I appreciate that because I do need to go back and finish that.
So for our listeners, if you're watching The Good Place, skip forward like 5 minutes and you'll be fine.
But also
But
watch this show and finish
yes,
yours.
also finish it. It's amazing. But so they get to heaven, right? The Good Place, and the problem with The Good Place is that everyone who's currently there hates it because they've been there for so long and they have everything they want. So, like, what more could you want if you have everything you need? Your needs are all met and your wants are all met, and like you get bored after a while. So they develop this like plan to like put a door in so you can like essentially just disappear as a whole, like no longer exist when you want to. So eventually, all of them go through the door, except for Tahani. Tahani ends up being an architect in the Good Place. So
I mean, that sounds interesting.
yeah, it's really good. It was really I was really surprised by it. It's a really sad ending too. It's kind of like emotional, but it was really good.
But okay, so if you're leaving out this door, is that like reincarnation? Like you become a person again, or you're just gone forever?
I feel like it's kind of left up to like you. It's kind of like, you decide as the viewer. I took it as like because when they go through the door, they essentially dissolve into like matter and like go into the air. So is that being reborn or is that like just not existing anymore?
I don't know. I took science. Like energy doesn't. It goes somewhere else. It doesn't just disappear.
It's true. Yes, I've used that argument for ghosts all the time, but I never win the argument.
Yeah, but how do you lose that argument? Who can tell you, like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about? Like, okay, sure, I'm going to keep believing what I'm believing. Because truly, like, the energy goes somewhere. I think that that's probably why they tried, like, bring priests in and exorcisms and all that stuff, because eventually, like, if it's bad enough energy and there's a ton of it, like, you want to release it in a different way. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think that that's a good argument for ghosts.
I agree. So
And who's gonna tell you you're wrong?
one day, we will have evidence of ghosts and or Bigfoot and or aliens. Which I don't know if you've been watching like the hearings on the aliens and UFOs and crap.
No, I heard that they're happening, and I was hoping you would have some info for me.
So the info I have is that there's whistleblowers, but they're not saying much in these open meetings that have been released to the public. All they're saying is like, yes, there have been alien spaceships or spaceships we can't identify as human that aren't human created. And like one of the questions they asked one of the guys was, has the United States government tried to replicate any alien technology? And he said yes. But one of the guys said like they're actually coming from our oceans, like they're not in space, they're in the ocean, like
I've seen
that's where they're
that.
residing.
Yeah, I've seen that on Ancient Aliens.
Which I mean, you and I just have discussed like the ocean is so vast that we literally have not explored like even like a scratch of it. So like it could definitely be.
Yeah, and who are we to say that they are coming from the ocean? That's just where we're seeing them from. Maybe it's a hub. I don't know.
Someone posted a video on TikTok. They were talking about this exact topic and whether or not aliens exist and why we have not seen them or heard from them or vice versa. Um, and they said I'm sure you're familiar with like these tribes that live on islands that are completely remote. So basically, we know those tribes exist. We've have evidence of them existing, video evidence and stuff, but we don't actually interact with them because doing so could kill them. Dangerous to people that we send out there. You know, they're not their immune systems kind of suck because they haven't had the diseases we have or vaccines we have. And that ideology and that practice could be what aliens are doing to us. Like they can see us, they know we're there, they've observed us, but they're not going to interact with us because we are so primitive that like we would be exposed to illnesses from them and it would kill us, or vice versa.
That makes sense to me. Like our fragile minds can't handle it. It's that makes perfect sense,
Yeah, but
right?
the it does. But the only thing I would say about the hearings, going back to them for a second, is that every single whistleblower said they would disclose more information, like specifics, in a closed door meeting that would not be released to the public. And I'm like, come on, man, like this is BS.
Yeah.
Like,
Why?
come on.
Why? Why do they want all this behind closed doors? So, do we just not get to hear from you, or do we not get to hear it at all? Like, I don't know. I don't like it.
No,
I don't like
I
it.
mean, you
Finally being
know,
upfront about something.
well, I remember when Trump was elected, sadly in 2016, he like promised he was going to release all these like covert, classified files to everybody, and of course, didn't do it. And I'm pretty sure he said he's going to do it again, and of course, he won't do it again. It'll just be like no one will ever tell us until like we are abducted by aliens at some point in our lives.
I mean, that's what's going to have to take, I guess.
But
And
then no
some
one will
people
believe us.
might already be getting abducted by aliens, and none of us believe them because we don't know any better.
Yeah, I mean, granted, like a lot of these stories are like they sound like they're like on something or going through a mental health crisis.
I mean, that could be true too. But also in this state of this world, like if you're not going through a mental health crisis, then are you really existing?
I feel like I've gone through like 18 mental health crises in the last week and a half. So,
Yeah, yeah. And like, how many lifetimes have we all lived since like 2019?
God, yeah, I feel like I still feel like 2020 was 2 years ago, and I just
Hmm.
so long ago.
Yeah, yeah. We're coming up on 5 years. Insanity.
Uh,
There are like black hole periods. Like thinking about my children and the age they're at now, like it kind of makes me sad because I'm like, oh, there's a couple years there that are kind of lost.
let me ask you a question. So, when your kids like when they play like they're talking on a phone, like how we were kids, we go like this. Do your kids go like this, like when they pretend they're talking on the phone, or do they do the?
I think they do this.
It's isn't that like I don't know if it's weird to you or just me. Like I always did this growing up, and like it's just weird. Like we transition to like a
Yeah,
fist or
because like I have my phone here. I don't hold my phone like this,
right.
but I feel like they hold a toy up when they do it, or like almost like a microphone.
That's kinda
Yeah,
like what I do. I just, like I don't ever well, first of all, I don't answer the phone. When I do answer the phone, I just go on speaker and, like, you know, I put everyone's business in the air. I don't keep anyone's business private.
yeah, and like I don't think that my kids understand that not all phone calls are video calls because the only ones that they really get on are video calls, and it's only like me, their dad, my mom, and her friends. So when they get on a phone call that there's like not a person on the screen, they're like not as interested. Like, okay, I don't know what's going on right now. Like, do they not have internet? But they also don't really understand the concept of not having internet because I have one tablet that connects to Wi-Fi and one tablet that can be used anywhere. And they're like, I have to keep reminding my son, like this one doesn't. It has to be connected to Wi-Fi, and he's like, what?
Um, we have, a Facebook portal, so, like, we can call, like, family and stuff like that on Facebook, video chat on, like, a separate monitor, and my daughter, it's always plugged in, and it's sitting on, like, the end table, but she loves it, but she likes to, like, push buttons on there and, like, call people at random, and so, obviously, your contact list on there is, like, your most recently contacted, so it's like, my wife, my brother, like you are on there and like, my mom. And so like sometimes I'll walk in the living room and she's like pushing, let's call Steph. I'm like, no, no, let's not randomly
I wouldn't mind it.
but but
I
we
mean,
we figured out how to put like on a self view so it looks like you're on a video chat, but it's just her by herself in the living room. And she doesn't understand it yet. So she like pulls the camera around, like showing off all the living room, like showing off her toys, and like picking up and be like, look, I have Elmo. I'm like, yes, it's working. You're
yeah,
distracted.
but can you also record that? Because that sounds so cute.
I need to yeah, I'll record it tomorrow. It's adorable. It's really cute.
That sounds so cute. I when my son used to do stuff like that, like I don't know, I was obsessed. It's like, oh, my daughter used to set up the phone, and then there was one time that like she decided that she was an influencer, and she was trying to show off filling up her bottle. And like she had to have been like a year and a half, like too old for bottles, but she was a good kid in every other aspect. I let her have what she wanted. Like that's why she's as diabolical as she is now. But she was like sitting on the counter and she's just like trying to take off the lid. And I'm like, okay, I'm just watching. And then she hands it to me and then I do it. And then she's like showing like she did it. And then she like brings the milk out and she's like trying to do the whole thing, but she's making me do it. And then she's sitting there acting like she did it. It's like I treasured that video, but it was like 4 minutes of her being like a total influencer. I was like, where did you even see this at? I'll have to send you the video. It's really it's a series. There's a couple of them, but they're so stinking cute.
Oh man. Oh man, kids, they're so funny. Um okay, so audience, we have not forgotten. This is a spooky podcast, and we're getting to our
Oh,
topic. Don't worry. We love our tangents, so don't worry. We got you. So, speaking of oceans, This week we're going to talk about mysterious triangles, I will call it. So, like the Bermuda Triangle, for example. There are several places in the world that have similar things happening in a triangular area. The first being the Bennington Triangle out in Vermont. So, the Bennington Triangle, the term was coined by author Joseph Citro. And you'd be proud of me. I put pronunciations of names in here, and specifically because they're Native American names, and I was like, I am not going to disrespect Native Americans more than white people have already done that. So,
Proud of you.
um,
Proud of you. I wouldn't have
thank
known
you.
any better, but proud of you. Especially after
um,
we like really messed up. What was it, like Russian names last week?
yeah, that was
Doing
awful.
that.
That was terrible. I felt so bad. Oh, by the way, separate tangent. We had a listener in Siberia, is one of our listeners. We have listeners in Canada and South Africa and shit, another country. We're in like 5 countries now, so
That's amazing. If you guys
which is
are real,
wild.
please email us.
Yeah, please email us betweenstatelinespodcast@gmail.com.
Wow. That feels really cool. I hope you guys are real.
Like after last week, the Russian person's like, all right, I'm not listening to this podcast anymore.
Yeah, screw these guys. I'll
Okay,
listen
so
to one episode.
the Bennington Triangle. Again, the term was coined by Joseph Citro during a radio broadcast in 1992 to describe the stretch of woodlands around Glastonbury Mountain, including the towns of Bennington, Woodford, and Shaftesbury, as well as the ghost towns of Somerset and Glastonbury. The height of missing persons activity in this area was between the years of 1920 and 1950. According to local folklore, the triangle is considered an area where the laws of reality are shifted, and the veil between this world and the other is thin, allowing strange events to occur. According to Native American lore, the area is considered to be cursed. This is because they believe the 4 winds met in an eternal struggle at the peak of the mountain, and that caused the winds and weather to change erratically, which disoriented people in the area. Um, the Abenaki tribe told legends of hairy, large men, half men, who roamed the land and threatened local people. An Algonquin legend warned of malevolent stones in the mountains that would open up and devour anyone and everyone who stepped on it. So, pretty creepy so far. That's pretty wild, pretty weird. But so for more than 2 centuries, there have been numerous sightings of a Bigfoot-like creature in the mountain that became known as the Bennington Monster. So Sasquatch is now on the East Coast, apparently. Um, One of the first reported sightings occurred in the early 1800s when a stagecoach full of passengers was forced to stop on a washed out road. The stage driver first noticed the huge footprints in the mud that were too large to be human, and then the coach was attacked by a giant creature who knocked the vehicle on its side. The passengers reported they could only see a pair of eyes before the monster roared and ran back into the forest. Carol Herrick in 1943 went missing during a hunting trip about 10 miles northeast of the ghost town of Glastonbury, and his body was discovered 3 days later, surrounded by giant, mysterious footprints, and his cause of death appeared to be being squeezed to death.
Okay, that's pretty scary. I like how, first of all, being native, if we are like, no, that's a no-go place, it's cursed. I'm I'm good with that. That feels right to me. Um, I don't like how Bigfoot out there seems more aggressive. Over here, I've heard a lot of stories about like Bigfoot throws pebbles and like is curious about you, but seems to keep his distance and enough that we don't really see him. don't like how they're like the East Coast version is aggressive and may squeeze you to death. That's
Yeah,
not
I always thought Bigfoot was, like you said, throwing or he would throw rocks at you like from afar, but not really, try to hit you. Um, and also steal your pies off of your windowsill. That I, of course, as a kid, without a windowsill or woods behind me, thought that he would do to us.
well, you saw Snow White. Like Snow White had the pie in the windowsill. The dwarfs like smelling that, and the witch with the apple. I don't know. It all seems plausible, I guess. Yeah, don't like this aggressive version in this area that is cursed. I don't know what's up with the four winds or what that is. There a deeper meaning there? What is the four winds? I don't know. I want to look into that more. Like, is it because there's different climates meeting at one spot, or I don't know. But also it's cursed, so wouldn't go there. So I guess it doesn't matter.
Nope, you know better than a lot of people. Like I probably would go there and then I get lost, and then you'd be like, well, I told him, don't go
Yeah.
to the cursed mountain.
Yeah. He was like, my daughter gives aggressive hugs. I thought that it'd be fine. Like, I'm used to it.
I thought I could handle Bigfoot's hug.
Yeah.
Bigfoot, give Daddy a hug.
Not the East Coast version. Not the East Coast version. He's not
uh,
the nicest.
so there have been missing persons cases more than just the one I mentioned about the guy who died from aggressively being hugged. So the first of which, this is during a 5-year span beginning in 1945. I believe there's 5 total missing persons that were documented. But their rapid succession was what brought on this like mysterious aura. So the first of those being 74-year-old hunting guide Mitty Rivers. On November 12th, 1945, Rivers was leading a hunting party near Hell Hollow in the southwest woods of Glastonbury. When the group was heading back towards camp, Rivers ran ahead to kind of scout the path ahead, and never returned. Considering his expert knowledge of the area, the group did not really consider him to be, to be a risk out in the wilderness by himself. So they weren't really concerned. However, when he didn't return that night, they did eventually send a search party. Approximately 300 locals and U.S. soldiers from the nearby Fort Devens in Massachusetts searched the area for 8 days, only finding a single rifle cartridge matching the gun that he used. No evidence of an animal attack was found, and to this day, he has not been located. Although I had one website I visited that said he had been located, but every other site said he had not been located. So I'm just going to assume that he's not, has never been found. So they found a cartridge from his rifle and nothing else. No signs of foul play or animal attack, and he just disappeared.
Yeah, it's weird how he's an expert. First of all, sick name. But also Hell Hollows. Yeah, probably not going there. Yeah, if it wasn't cursed already from the four winds, I still wouldn't go there because Hell Hollows. Have we not learned our lesson? Granted, this was a while ago, and maybe names were just names back in the 40s and 50s, but yeah, what stopped the abductions, I guess? Like, is it really that they stopped after the 50s, or is it is there something else that we're blaming it on since then?
So there have been a lot of theories, like alien abductions, paranormal. Um, some people believe that like the Native American legend where you step on a stone, a specific large set of stones up in the mountain, you are swallowed by the mountain. That is something that people believe. But as far as I could research, there have been missing persons, just like any other place in the country, but nothing in this pattern of like, you know, boom, 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 5 people back to back to back to back missing in a short period of time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but at the same time, isn't that the kind of area that a lot of like um native women have gone missing? I think that there's an area up in that like northeast up there that there's a lot of missing Native women, and they're not like something that's really talked about as much, but I think that that's why there's like the movement of like talking more about missing and endangered Native American women, because that tends to be people that don't get reported as much. So I don't know, something to look into. Like maybe it really hasn't dropped off. Maybe they just went for a different route, a different demographic.
Yeah, I mean, it is. You make a good point. That's one of the demographics that not only is underreported, but I feel like it's not taken as seriously, like you said. Um, like anyone, like black women, also not taken very seriously. It's like, okay, well, there are way more, missing persons than we know of.
Yeah, I had a therapist once that we connected because we were both Native, and I was telling her like how I felt in my relationship. Like, it just didn't feel like I was a person and had like equal say in things. And she was like, well, on paper, like on legal government documents, as a Native woman, like you're really seen as less valuable. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's why I feel this way. And she's like, yeah. So yeah, it's just that might be something worth looking into. Like maybe it hasn't dropped off since the 50s. Maybe it is like just as bad as it was then. The rocks thing really scares me as a huge klutz and somebody who would step in the wrong freaking place. Yeah, that's terrifying.
Speaking of that kind of like clumsiness and coincidences, um, I saw a story today that I can't recall what year it was, but there was a lady who she grabbed a live wire by mistake. She was like slipped and fell or whatever, grabbed a live wire and got electrocuted to death. And her sister, don't know why she was doing this, was showing a neighbor how her sister did this. And then she did the same thing, slipped and fell, grabbed the wire, and died. I don't know why the wire was still live at that point, like why it was still there, but also, like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, that stresses me out. That stresses me out. Yeah, I don't know how that happened the first time, let alone it was still set up for the second time.
One other side tangent here. We love side tangents. Abraham Lincoln, so obviously he was killed by John Wilkes Booth. His son, uh, like 2 years prior, was traveling on train and he was jumping between train cars and he slipped and almost fell in front of a train and basically almost died. But before he fell, he was grabbed by a passenger on the train. That passenger was John Wilkes Booth's brother.
No way. That's not real,
I
is it?
Yeah, it's real. I thought it was fake. And I looked it up. Snopes has it as a real, true thing that happened.
Wow. That's so strange. That is so strange. I don't know. That's going to take a while to wrap my head around.
Yes. Okay. So missing
Weird.
person. So
Was the world that small?
right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it was, but it's so like that is pretty wild. The brother of the guy who killed your dad saved your life 2 years before your dad died.
Yeah. How is the world that small?
Pretty crazy times.
This
Okay,
coming
so
from the girl that works with her dad's cousin. I don't know.
that's also pretty wild.
I mean, it's on the same tribal land, so it makes sense. I went to my boss and I was like, look at how weird this is. And she was like, yeah, you're going to get a lot of that as a tribal member. And I was like, oh, touche. Okay. It hasn't happened to me before.
And that, when your kids are older, they'll work there too. Like, oh, it's a whole entire Steff family is working there now.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to take over tribal council.
Okay, so missing person. So after that other guy went missing and was never located, 1 year later, which I believe was on no, it wasn't exactly a year later. 18-year-old student Paula Weldon went hiking on the Long Trail, so the same trail that he actually went missing on. And according to several witnesses, she was wearing a bright red jacket. For a good chunk of the hike, a couple maintained pace with her, even back roughly 100 yards. According to them, it seemed as if she turned a corner on the trail and completely disappeared. And when she failed to show up for class the next morning, she was reported missing, and an extensive search was launched to locate her, including more than 1,000 people, aircraft surveillance, and the FBI. A $5,000 reward was also offered to help find her. But to this day, she has never been located, alive or dead, and the couple they were the last people to see her alive.
And they saw where she turned the corner and still couldn't find her.
Yep. Which I mean, granted, 100 yards. Like I thought it was my brain. I'm like, that's not very far, but that's a whole football field length. So it's like maybe she like went down an embankment and they didn't
Yeah.
see.
I guess but if they saw the general area where she disappeared, they could at least point people in the right direction and like really comb that area. So to me, she was abducted by aliens. Like that's really the only solution here. Or other reality.
Maybe she went to a time portal and transported.
Something like that. Like she did the left, right, left thing and gone.
That story is so. I mean, I know it's a fiction story, but man, can you imagine like that being a real thing? Like you go on this journey, go into a different realm, and
I mean, if I wasn't terrified that I would go to the wrong realm, I would give it a shot.
yeah, yeah, I would. I mean, I would definitely do it, and I would do it. I'd be gone right away within like literally 10 minutes. I'd be dead.
Well, yeah, because I just think about like how many realities would, if that's true, how many realities are out there I'd never make it back. Imagine if you were somebody who did that by mistake.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and then you don't even know what you did to make that happen. Like you couldn't even try it. If you knew that happened, it'd seriously be like Groundhog Day. Like just keep trying to make your way back, and you're just ending up in all these like crazy realities. Either way, it doesn't sound like fun.
Next time I'm in a hotel, I'm gonna play the elevator game. If I have to do it alone, I will. But
You're gonna have
I
to do that alone.
no, I will. I'll get on with somebody else. I'm like, hey man, let's try some real quick. It's some random person like a 5, 8, 9,
How do you
1.
know that they're not the person in the elevator you're not supposed to talk to? You don't know that person.
You know, I mentioned this game to my dad, and he was like, "Oh, I played the elevator game when I was a kid." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, one time my dad and we all went to the either Disney World or whatever's in Florida, Disneyland, I think.
Disney
Um,
World.
Disney World, okay. And so they were like, "Oh, we stayed in this hotel, and the hotel had like 50 floors or whatever." And he's like, we got in, we were on like the 20th floor, and I pushed all of the buttons going from like 21 to 50. And my dad had to sit with his granddad in the elevator going floor by floor by floor by floor by floor.
That's not
He's
quite the
like,
elevator game.
yeah, I was like, Dad, that's not the elevator game, but I love it.
I'm sorry to him and his granddad. I would have got off the elevator and taken the stairs. Like, freaking kids, man. Freaking kids.
Okay, so 3 years after Paula disappeared, James Tedford was the triangle's next victim. 3 years to the day, so December 1st, 1949, and this is a little bit weirder than the last story.
It's weird
Uh,
that it happened 3 years to the day.
that is, yes, but it gets even weirder. Wait and see.
Okay.
Uh, he was a resident of Bennington Soldiers Home, um, which was a residence home in Bennington, in the area, but had been in St. Albans visiting relatives and took a bus back home when he disappeared. According to witnesses, he was one of 14 passengers remaining on the bus at the last stop before arriving in Bennington. When the bus arrived in town, he was nowhere to be found. His luggage remained on the bus, as did an open bus timetable on his vacant seat. He had not been seen leaving the bus, nor did anyone see him get off in Bennington or any other stop. His disappearance was investigated, but outside of him disappearing into thin air, there were no further suspicious circumstances, and to this day, no one knows what happened to him. So he's riding on a bus, and then just poof, gone.
God. See, alternate realities. Like, there's no way aliens are alternate realities. I'm not convinced it's not aliens, but the different realities seems very plausible too. Now that I know that is a possibility, like, I don't know. It feels like that's like more and more like, okay, yep, that has to be it. Like, people don't just disappear.
Can you imagine like sitting on the bus like next to him and like you like I guess you go under a bridge and like the bus gets dark and then you look and like oh shit where the fuck did he go like
I'd be like, what drugs am I on? Did somebody slip me drugs?
somebody slipped me that cocaine powder.
Have you ever been like, okay, because I had to take a drug test for this job, and like, I don't do drugs, but I was like still scared. Like, what if somebody slipped me something?
It's
Yeah.
kind of like when you go to the airport and you see a sign saying like don't bring your guns, and like me as a non-gun owner I'm like oh shit what if I brought a gun with me, I'm like
What
not
if
a
I
fucking
touched
gun.
something? Did I pack any bombs? Like, yeah, I think that almost every single time. And like
Did I
one
pack?
time I actually did get checked, but it was because I brought baby formula. And apparently they like have to test it to make sure that it is actually baby formula. I don't know what they're feeding to babies, but it was that Costco baby formula. Had to get checked. Going to Hawaii, very dangerous.
Costco is like the bomb building capital apparently.
Well, and when we were in Hawaii, we went and hiked. Oh God, what is it? I want to say it's Coco Head. There were two different hikes, and one of them is like 1,048 stairs. And being on that hike, when we came back, they actually tested our shoes because they were like, "What's this on your shoes?" And it's like, "Well, we went on this really hard hike."
Like sure you did. He went on a hike. Okay, it's probably PCP in your shoes or whatever.
I was scared. What if I walk through bombs? You don't know. Sorry,
Ah,
I stepped in it.
um. Okay, so on October 12th, 1950, the next person's missing case. Um, 8-year-old boy named Paul Jepson went missing. He was playing in um. I wrote some weird shit here. I gotta read my words. He was playing in the back of a pickup when his mother left him briefly to tend to her pigs. When she returned, he was gone. After looking for the boy in the immediate area, he was reported missing, and hundreds of people assembled in a search party. Bloodhounds were brought in to search for the boy, which picked up his scent and followed it towards Glastonbury Mountain, but it was lost at a nearby crossroads, suggesting a possible abduction by a motorist. The boy's father said that Paul had been talking about visiting the mountain for several days, and though the area was searched for a bunch of days, no clues or remains of the boy were ever found. Just 16 days later, Frida Langer went missing on October 28th, 1950. She and several members of her family were camping in the woods near Glastonbury Mountain, and she, along with her cousin Herbert Elsner, left their campsite near the Somerset Reservoir to go on a hike. However, when they were just a few hundred yards from their campsite, Langer slipped and fell into a stream, soaking her clothes and shoes. She then asked her cousin to wait as she ran back to the camp to change her clothes, and after Elsner waited for a while, she never returned.
I'm just thinking, like, why didn't the cousin go back with her? Like, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll just wait for you here by myself," after somebody was abducted and never found 2 weeks ago in the same area.
right? And like you're not that far from the campsite. Like you wouldn't go with her, but um
It's a short walk. Come on.
a short jaunt. So she never returned to the camp or to him that was waiting for her. Instead, she had seemingly disappeared in broad daylight in that short distance from where they were to the campsite. Several search parties, including some 400 people, searched the area and nothing turned up. Search was finally called off days later, and then 7 months later, on May 12th, 1951, her body was found near Somerset Reservoir in an area that had been previously extensively searched. Due to her decomposition, no cause of death could be determined, but she is the only missing persons uh, to have her remains located in this area, at least in that during that time period.
7 months exactly from the first person disappearing.
Yep.
Yeah, that I don't know. I So she was in the reservoir. She's in the water,
Mm-hmm.
but it has been extensively searched. What year was this?
1950.
Okay. Like I don't really trust people way back then doing an extensive search, just because I feel like we have so much technology and we've come a long way. So maybe they did miss her. I don't know. I don't know. But then how did she end up in the reservoir when she's going back to change her clothes? Because she'd fallen in the water. Like, obviously, she easily fell in the water, but she left the area.
So the for all these cases, people have postulated that there could be a serial killer in the area. God has that went wild, but outside of these 5 cases, like relatively nothing else happened as far as like that quick succession. So like if it was a serial killer, they did 5 people and then like stopped.
Or they went somewhere else.
Or they went somewhere else. Um People also think it could be a big Bigfoot again. That would make sense if like a quick, kidnapping, like, she was there 1 minute and then gone the next minute and then dead.
Yeah, and they couldn't tell how. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There's so many possibilities there. That's crazy, though, and scary.
Yeah. I am going with alien abduction.
I want to go with different timelines. I think it could be a serial killer, but if it is, it's somebody from a different timeline. They moved on. They're in a different space and time, and that's how they got away with it too. Yeah, and how she ended up in a spot that had already been extensively searched, supposedly.
um so yeah, that is the Bennington Triangle where those people went missing in the 40s and 50s, and to this day no one's had proof of anything happening there besides postulations. You think it's timelines? I think it definitely could be timelines. I think it could be like, a time portal that like you like go through a space and you end up somewhere else. Like maybe she went through a portal, ended up in the river, uh, you know, 10 days after she disappeared.
Yeah, I have no idea. The possibilities are endless. Also, like touche on finding something that's even scarier than Israel keys, because these triangles somehow scarier. I think
Speaking of
there's
Israel,
so
speaking
much.
of Israel keys, I posted one of those clips last week, this week, and someone commented like they commented like the girl in the middle, which is you. She's smiling during this whole like we're telling about like this serial killer who had like all these kill stashes everywhere and like murder people, and like you weren't smiling, like you were just like a normal resting face, and they were like, wow, this girl in the middle really thinks this is funny, and I was like, okay, psycho, I'm gonna delete this and block you.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's funny. do think it's really interesting. And I thought that it was so interesting. All the things that she brought up are like, okay, I've heard this, I've heard this. Like, and then she built up on some of the things that I was like, oh, I haven't heard this. And that was really interesting to me. And I got really excited about that because, like, there's a lot of things. Because Israel Keys is somebody who truly scares me. Like, I'm happy he's not around anymore. It sucks that we don't have the answers and that he got to take, like, this way out because we don't know. But to have new information come to light was really exciting for me because I have, like, that's one of the people that I have gone down one of those like 2 a.m. spirals reading all about them. And then when she's like, I should follow up on like his daughter, I was like, I've done that extensive search at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And
Have
so
you
I hope she finds something because I did not.
you never found anything about his daughter's like name or anything? No.
Mm-mm. No.
Good. I
And
mean,
honestly, like, probably good on her because like I said then, I don't believe that it's like just because your dad was this bad person that makes you a bad person. But I do wonder about, like, how are you doing? Because that has to be a lot. Like, it's just a lot, like, psychologically to like deal with. But yeah, my resting face is like a slight smile. So sorry to that
yeah.
person. If you got blocked because of this comment, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit crazy. I also was trying really hard to be alive because I kept feeling like I was getting really tired. And I felt like when I saw those videos, I was like, aha, I can see it in my eyes. I'm trying really hard. The lighting in there was not great, and I was getting really sleepy.
Okay, so this is where we're gonna end part 1, guys. Part 2 will be out on Thanksgiving. So if you want to be spooked and stuff, tune back in on Thanksgiving part 2.
Bye.